Hello, and welcome to the first episode in the Disciplining and Discipling Like Jesus video series, where we will be learning the 12 practical ways to discipline and disciple our children like Jesus. If you'd like a brief overview of this series, check out Part 8 from the Gospel-Based Parenting playlist, which answers the question, how does Jesus discipline? I'll go ahead and put a link below in the description. All right, my friends, these are the 12 ways that Jesus disciplined his disciples. And these are the 12 ways that we can also practice true biblical discipline with our own disciples, our children. Today, we will be talking about teaching. As many of you know, my name is Angela Harders, and I'm the author of the book Gospel-Based Parenting, the Crunchy Kids series, and the Wonderful World of World Schooling. I've been a teacher for over 15 years in my hometown, Washington, D.C., as well as abroad in countries like Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Thailand. I have a master's degree in bilingual education and a passion for languages and linguistics, especially studying the biblical languages, Hebrew and Greek. I've taught people of all ages, from toddlers to adults. I've taught public school, private school, and even homeschool. I have invested thousands of hours into becoming the best teacher that I can be. Reading books, attending seminars, taking classes and professional development, and there is always more to learn and grow. But as you seek to learn how to best teach your children, it is so important to remember that the greatest learning that we could ever do is not found in any Ivy League school, but rather sitting at the feet of the only perfect teacher, Jesus. And I'm so excited to share with you about ways that you can learn to teach like him. Let's start by looking at some passages of Scripture to see how Jesus taught. Mark 6:34 says, "When Jesus went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things." From this passage, we can learn two key ideas about teaching. Number one, look for opportunities to teach. The verse tells us that Jesus saw a great crowd. We need to learn to see opportunities for us to be able to teach our children. The second thing that we learn from this passage is our motivation for teaching. Compassion. Jesus was motivated to teach because he had compassion on the people that he encountered. He did not teach them lessons out of spite or frustration or anger. Compassion was his motive. Compassion is a word meaning to suffer together. When our child is feeling angry, frustrated, or sad, we can have compassion by allowing ourselves to feel what they're feeling. Now close your eyes and imagine for a moment that any time you asked a question, the answer was a resounding no, with no explanation or reason. Imagine someone took something important away from you. Imagine you have no choices or control in your life, and your every moment is planned and dictated by someone else. Imagine that someone you care about hurt you or hurt your feelings. Imagine that you're hungry with no way to get food, or that you're tired and forced to run someone else's errands. Imagine that the person you love the most yells at you or hits you. Imagine that you really want something and have no way to get it. Imagine you're sharing something important and the other person is just staring at their phone or the TV. Imagine that you're telling someone about something that has completely broken your heart and they respond by saying, "Get over it." Imagine you have no language, no words to describe how you're feeling, what you need, or what you want. No way to understand others around you or to be understood. No form of expressing yourself or communicating with words at all. How would you feel? How would you want someone to respond to you? These are the things that your child may be experiencing on a daily basis. Think about how you would like to be treated when you're feeling frustrated, depressed, lonely, angry, misunderstood, hopeless, hungry, tired, and sad. Now, none of these emotions are inherently sinful or wrong. They're simply part of the human experience. The way that we respond to these emotions can be sinful or wrong, but the emotion itself is not inherently sinful. If we focus on teaching our children to deal with their emotions in a healthy way, instead of punishing them for just having those emotions, they'll be much better prepared to function in life as healthy adults. All right, now let's look at another verse to see how Jesus taught. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. John 8:2. One of the things that I noticed in this verse is that it says that Jesus went to the temple early in the morning. Jesus did not waste time. And I love the fact that the Bible emphasizes that he sat down and taught them. Most teachers, including myself, have a habit of standing in the front of the classroom to teach our students. But this is not how Jesus taught. He sat down with them. He got down onto their level in order to teach them and bring them up. He met people where they were at, both spiritually and physically. So I'm going to add that to our list of tips that we've learned on how to teach like Jesus. Okay, story time. I want to share with you a little story about my daughter when she was 2 years old. She'd gotten angry because one of her toys was broken, and she ended up screaming at the top of her lungs. Now, I could have gotten angry with her, but instead I took Jesus' example and followed the 3 tips for teaching that we have learned so far. First, I physically got on her level. I knelt down on the floor next to her so we were seeing eye to eye. Then I emotionally got on her level. I put into words the emotion that she was feeling but could not yet express herself. I said, "Wow, you feel angry that your toy broke." Next, I looked for an opportunity to teach her. In this case, I wanted to teach her to express the emotion anger in a healthy way. So I set a boundary and provided an alternative by saying, "We talk with a calm voice when we are inside the house. If you want to yell, you can go outside on the deck and yell as loud as you want to." Notice that I did not say, "Don't yell" or "Stop screaming." This is a teaching strategy that I've used over and over in my classroom and at home. We, as parents and teachers of our children, have to learn to communicate positively and not negatively. Tell your children the behavior that you want to see, not what you don't. I set the boundary that inside the house we talk with a calm voice. I also provided her with an alternative. I let her know that if she wanted to yell, she absolutely could, but there was a specific place that she could do that, outside on our deck. And last but not least, I showed her compassion. I did not leave her alone to deal with these big feelings by herself. Instead, I suffered together with her. I said, "If you like, I'll go outside and yell with you too." Immediately, she stopped crying and screaming, and then she looked up at me, a bit surprised. She slowly nodded her head, and so I offered her my hand. We went out on the deck together where we both yelled at the top of our lungs for about 2 seconds before we both just erupted in laughter. Sometimes laughter is one of the fastest ways to dispel anger. I thought back to the numerous of times in which I've seen parents respond to a yelling child by yelling at the child to not yell. It's absolutely ludicrous. I'm grateful that I, as a parent, am learning to do things differently. I hope that together you will begin to learn and apply new strategies with your children as well. Okay, but we aren't quite done yet. Let's go back to the Bible and see what else we can learn about how Jesus taught his disciples. Mark 4:2 says, "He taught them by telling many stories in the form of parables." Verses 33 and 34 say, "With many such parables he was speaking the word to them, so far as they were able to hear it. And he did not speak to them without a parable, but he was explaining everything privately to his own disciples." You see, Jesus knew the power of telling a story. In fact, the Bible says that he did not speak to them without a parable or a story. And he also took the time to explain his stories to his closest disciples. Telling stories is one of the most creative and impactful ways that we can teach our children. Stories give people the opportunity to find new ways in which they can relate to someone else. They encourage us to think critically and inspire us to learn new things, just as I hope that you learned something new from the story that I shared about my daughter. So our next teaching tip that we've learned from Jesus is to teach with a story. Some practical ways that you can do this are to look for books at your local library that address different issues that you may be facing with your child. Use the book as an opportunity to teach your child. Ask questions about what you're reading. Ask your child what he or she would do if she was a character in the book. I'll put a link in the description of this video for a website that I often use when looking for books based on a particular subject, so that you can find books that are related to topics that you and your children are dealing with. My family actually really enjoys the Joy Berry series, which features 30 different books about different topics like teasing, being selfish, complaining, gossiping, lying, and more. These books teach difficult topics in a way that is very easy for kids and adults to understand. My kids also think they're pretty funny too. While reading books with your children is one of the most important things that you can do with them, another way to incorporate stories into your life is by watching movies. The first thing that you need to be sure to do is to pick an appropriate movie. My family and I are fans of the VeggieTales movies, but you can literally turn any movie into an opportunity to teach and learn. But I would definitely recommend checking out a website like PluggedIn.com before watching. PluggedIn.com is a site run by Focus on the Family that analyzes every movie you could possibly think of and lets you know a general summary of the story, any foul language used, violence, sexual content, drug use, positive lessons to be learned, negative elements to consider, and more. I'll drop the link for this website also in the description below. Second, always use subtitles. In fact, this is actually how I taught myself Spanish, by watching movies with subtitles. And I believe that this is one of the many ways that my daughter taught herself how to read. Using subtitles will turn any movie into a moving book. And any opportunity that you have to increase their opportunities to read in English or another language is a great option. And last but not least, ask great questions. Now, you don't want to be that annoying person that talks through an entire movie, but it's a great idea to pause the movie at different points in order to ask great questions about the characters, make predictions about what will happen next, practice identifying different emotions, brainstorm different ways that a character could solve a problem, and consider applications for your own personal life. And this concludes our first episode in the Disciplining and Discipling Like Jesus video series. Here's what we learned today about how to teach like Jesus. Number 1, look for opportunities to teach. Number 2, show compassion as our motive for teaching. Number 3, get on our child's level, physically and emotionally. And number 4, teach with a story. You can tell a story, make up a story, read a book, or even use a movie. Please comment below on which teaching strategy you plan to try with your family this week. I can't wait to hear how it goes. And if you have another teaching strategy that you would like to share with us, please feel free to comment your tips and tricks below. And be sure to check out part 2. This video series is based on my book, Gospel-Based Parenting, which is available for purchase on Amazon.com. You can also download a free copy of my book from my website, www.peacefulworldschoolers.com. Every chapter includes a list of reflection and application questions that are meant to inspire discussions between you and your spouse, your small group, or even your church. These discussions are so important and will help you to reflect on your own personal experiences, analyze your own biases or preconceived ideas, and apply biblical truths in a way that will transform your family as you live out the gospel of Jesus Christ. And if you've enjoyed this series so far, please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you'll be able to continue to receive updates on my latest videos.